What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm joined, as always, over the weekends with my esteemed colleague, Marc Stein, who shares the inside scoop on what everybody is talking about around the league. We know what we're talking about on this show, but it's not until we have Marc on that we know what everybody behind the scenes is talking about. How you doing, Marc?
Adam Mades, I'm good, especially because I just almost pulled a cord that sent my whole system tumbling, but luckily it didn't. So the show is already off to a good start.
There you go. I one time on the show, my feet knocked over the camera, and so I had my camera tip over to the side when we were recording. So
Live?
I know the pain, man.
It was on live?
I think it was, and I caught it a little bit. It was a little shaky, but you know what? We do what we have to do around here to get the show to you. We have a great stuff for you lined up today. We're going to talk. I'm going to continue my crusade on the NBA Cup and what I see around the corner. People will call me a madman, as they already have on Wednesday's show, called me a madman. But I have a take on the NBA Cup that I think is going to happen. Anthony Davis.
Why are you so polarizing? What is the deal? Why are
you know what?
You're like a young Iverson.
Nobody has ever compared me to Allen Iverson before.
Yeah, that was a terrible reach. Scratch that, James. Edit that out.
I like it. You know what? I'm going to go with it. The podcasting Iverson. I feel like I'm early, Marc. I feel like I'm early, and people will catch up to be here in a couple of weeks. But Anthony Davis also back from injury. We're going to talk about injuries at large because that has been a topic as guys are dropping like flies. We're going to talk about the Sacramento Kings. But I want to start by asking you about the Eastern Conference, which at the top of the Eastern Conference, if you take a look, who do you see up there? The Detroit Pistons, the Toronto Raptors, the Miami Heat. You don't see the Cleveland Cavaliers or the New York Knicks, who are kind of going through some ups and downs at the moment. Some of that's injury. Some of that is just how good actually are they. But the top of it right now, Pistons, Raptors, Heat. What are people saying about this in the Eastern Conference? Do we have a new Eastern Conference top of the class?
Yeah, I think people, what they're really saying is, man, is this wide open? There is a chance for someone unexpected to claim an NBA Finals berth. And obviously, this is somewhat injury fueled because the Celtics don't have Tatum and the Pacers don't have Halliburton. And those are the East's last two representatives in the NBA Finals. The Pacers went to the conference finals the year before that. So that's obviously a factor. But yeah, the East, we got three Cinderellas up there. Nobody expected. Look, we're only 20% into the season, basically. So there's still a long way to go. But even 20 games in, I mean, nobody would have said Pistons, Raptors, Heat are your top three seeds. I mean, you know, again, don't ask me to do math because I'm not good at it, especially on the fly. But like, what? No, like, who's going to claim? I know you said you called AJ Mitchell, and the truth is you are beloved and your many fans back you up on that you did call AJ Mitchell. So I'm going to concede on that one. But nowhere in the archives did you say the top three going in the East going into Thanksgiving would be Pistons, Raptors, Heat. They're all great surprises. Yeah. I personally would have to say the Pistons going up a level from last year's Cinderella story is the standout headline, but Toronto and Miami have also been tremendous stories, especially Miami. Like, I have to say, Eric Spoelstra, to completely, you know, they were humiliated in the play-in last spring, and to completely change their offense and go away from picks, like, which has been the bedrock of NBA offense for so long, and just say, we are going to set the fewest screens you can humanly set and make the ball do the work and fly all over the place. And we're going to, you know, completely change the way we look and play at a pace. I mean, they're averaging like 106 possessions per 48 minutes, which, you know, that's really old school stuff. I mean, they've just done it in such a dramatically different way that, like, you know, Spoelstra's been doing this almost 20 years. It's great coaching to see him do this and just to take on a completely different approach and he only just got Tyler Hero back, who's his best offensive player. So,
right.
Really impressive.
And their upcoming schedule is kind of interesting. I mean, we're recording this on Wednesday. Tonight, they're playing Milwaukee at home. They have favored in that game. And then they get Detroit, who we just talked about. Detroit will put their streak on the line. By the way, the Miami Heat, at the time of recording this, has won 5 straight. If they beat the Bucks, it'll be 6 straight. So it could be a matchup of 2 teams with big streaks on the line coming into that game. But if you get those ones, those are teams you're competing with in the Eastern Conference. And I almost feel like a 5-game win streak's great. 12-6, a very good record. It's surprising. If you get both of those games, you're setting yourself up now. It starts to feel real. It starts to feel like a big deal. And those are the only 2 games you have coming up here between now and the following week. So Miami, to your point, to reinvent your system, Detroit got some new pieces in, but Miami has reinvented their identity before adding Tyler Hero. It's just very rare for a team to be able to do that and get off to a hot start.
Yeah, all 3 of these teams. Look, the Pistons went from 14 to 42, and Cade Cunningham became an all-star, and he was surrounded with veterans, and Beasley shot the hell out of it last year. So, they had a lot of things go right after the misery of a 14-win season that featured that 28-game losing streak that's a single-season record. But the jump from good to great is often tougher. And they look like a team right now that you have to say is going to factor in to the Eastern Conference title race. When you win 13, 14 games in a row, you have to say that. And the leap that Duren has made, so now they have 2 all-stars. So they don't quite have the shooting they had last season. Like, they clearly miss Beasley, and their kind of veteran core had to change, bringing in Duncan Robinson and LeVert, and they've tried to counter the players they've lost. But we talked about this last time. I mean, there's a lot of curiosity. The Pistons could do so much in the trade market, and they don't have to make a big swing. They could make a medium swing just to kind of improve their depth situation. But we haven't talked that much about Toronto, and that they've been another just tremendous story. That they had this starting 5 that we never saw play together because they traded for Brandon Ingram and extended Brandon Ingram, but Brandon Ingram did not play a single second last season as a Raptor after the trade from New Orleans. And the Raptors have this very expensive starting lineup that we really knew nothing about. Now, they've just lost RJ Barrett to a knee sprain. Luckily, it doesn't look, again, it's early. All they've said is they're not going to give us another evaluation for another week or so, but it's a knee sprain. It looks like, fingers crossed for the Raptors, that Barrett avoided something much worse, because and it's weird. The only time I've seen the Raptors with my own eyes this season was in Dallas. Has to be their worst night all season. The Mavs, who have the worst offense in the league, went for $139 that night. Like, I still don't know how that happened. But I mean, Toronto has been top 10 on both ends of the floor. So again, all 3 of these teams are tremendous early season stories. They you could really drill down on any of them, and there's a lot of interesting stuff happening.
As great as these 3 teams are, and I think they all deserve where they've been, they're great stories. They're fun teams to talk about. To me, I look at it and I say, okay, the Knicks and Cavs don't look like they are juggernauts. They can get it together, but they don't look like teams that are surefire to get it together and really play well. And then I look at teams down below and say, okay, Boston is 9-8, just kind of lingering around. They could strike up, and I know there's talk about Tatum maybe even returning later on in the year. You have Chicago, who's 9-8, who had that hot start and has teetered off a little bit. And then you have 2 teams that, in my opinion, should still be hopeful about their upside, in the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks. You throw Milwaukee in there too, by the way, they get healthy. But the Atlanta Hawks, Orlando Magic, the story is those teams at the top, they're on those win streaks. It's big. But if I'm Orlando and that really rough start they had to the year, Atlanta, rough start they had to the year, I still look at it and say, you know what? For as bad as things went early on, we're still right in the mix of things and can climb into a top 2 or 3 spot. So that, to me, those teams at the top, they now have a foothold at the top, but all those other teams, to me, should be optimistic that they could also climb into that upper echelon with a good run.
Well, you always ask me, what are people talking about? What they're talking about. I mean, you just named about 10 teams. I mean, that's been a very interesting thing, that the East looks deeper than the West basically as we dribble towards the 20 game mark. That was certainly like the teams. There are so many teams at in the bottom 5 of the West that were expected to do something that have gotten off to terrible starts. And look, I think realistically, if we could tap into 30 front offices, I think most would still expect the Cavs or the Knicks to win the East. Like, I don't think it's changed
Really?
to the, yeah, I still think that's what they would forecast in the long term, because those are the 2 strongest rosters in the East. But the rise of Detroit, of Toronto, and Miami tells you this conference is going to be much more competitive than anticipated, because like you said, Atlanta and Orlando, those were the teams everyone was raving about because of their off seasons. Those were the teams expected to make the jumps that we're seeing from the Raptors and the Heat. Nobody was expecting this. I think Toronto people were like, okay, they have enough talent in their starting 5 that they could be a play-in team. Nobody was expecting the Raptors to be competitive for the number 2 seed in the East. But really, the Raptors and the Heat are doing what was expected of the Hawks and the Magic. And look, the Hawks obviously lost Trae Young early, and he's still going to be out for a while. They're adjusting to that. And
Adjusting
Orlando got off to
nicely.
the, yeah, they, for the most part, I think that's fair. And the Magic have bounced back from a 1-4 start. They've had injuries as well. I mean, the East, that's probably the best takeaway from all this, that the East race, it looks like it's going to have a lot of twists and turns. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely good. I'm curious to watch it unfold as well, and I do think some of these teams are going to climb. I'm surprised people are so high on the Cavs and Knicks, though. I could see it. It's not like I think it's crazy. I predicted on Wednesday Detroit is going to finish with the 1 seed in the East. Could the Knicks and Cavs contend for that or even finish 2-3? Absolutely. But at the same time, I just like these other. I love watching Toronto. They're a fun team to watch. Miami is fun to watch. I haven't watched them a ton lately, but I have enjoyed them, when I was watching them here last week. And then Atlanta, I like. Orlando, I like watching. They're fun teams to watch, and they all have flaws that you're curious if they're going to be able to shore up some of their weaknesses. So I think the East is definitely interesting. The one thing I'll tell you, I don't think it's better than the West. Their lower middle class is better than the lower middle class of the West. But the West, you still go through and say, once you get outside the top 3 or 4 teams, you still have San Antonio, Minnesota, Golden State. I know they're not playing great at the moment, but I still think that
I'm more
stack
talking
up
about
well.
Grizzlies, Mavs, Clippers.
Yeah, the lower class is rough in the West.
Those teams were not. Those teams are supposed to be in the playoff mix.
Yeah,
and they've all fallen well short of that standard.
Well, one team that's fallen short of that standard is the Sacramento Kings. They had hope, but the West was so loaded. I didn't really have a ton of faith in Sacramento, but they are 5-13 and they're losing by an average of 11.5 points. They have won a couple games here, 2 games.
How did
in
they
a row.
win that Denver game? Was that just an angry Russell Westbrook willing the Kings to a win? I mean,
it was, you know what? And this is not an excuse. I mean, Denver has to be better than this. The great teams like Oklahoma City don't let this happen. But Denver had that emotional win over Houston. That was like a measuring stick game the night before. They fly home, which was, I think, there's like 7th city in 9 nights. And so they fly home for that game and just got outclassed in transition. But nonetheless, it shows you that they have the talent to get wins and even upset wins. But they haven't done that consistently enough this year. But they are 5-13. And I asked you what people are talking about. And you said there's teams that you can suspect will be open for business at some point. But there's one team that's already broadcast that they're open for business, and that is the Sacramento Kings. They should be players at the trade deadline. And as much as they're a 5-13 team, the individual pieces of that roster, both in the star category, but also in just the role player, cheaper contract type guys, there's some good players. You've got young guys who are not playing much right now, in Carter and Keon Ellis. You have star players that could be valuable to other teams like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, who's in the middle class. So they kind of have every flavor of trade player that you could imagine, and they're open for business. So what does that mean? What do you expect going forward?
Well, look, their phones are already ringing for Keon Ellis, whose minutes he's playing about 6 minutes per game fewer than he did last season. And the Kings are going to have to decide, do we want to part with him, someone who you can probably construct a net positive trade for between now and the deadline in February? Or is that a player they want to keep for the future? I mean, the early messaging out of the 916 has been that Keegan Murray and Neat Clifford are off limits and they're open to pretty much everything else. I have to say, Russell Westbrook has been one of the good stories in this early season. He's delivered. He's played fantastically well for the Kings. He's really the only one who's, I think realistically exceeded expectations and given the Kings what they were hoping for in terms of floor game and especially edge. You knew that the edge that Russell Westbrook plays with is something that Doug Christie as the coach was going to love, and we've seen that. But I mean, you said it. The expectation around the league is already that they would listen to just about anything, and the reality is Sabonis, who's always been a very durable player, is now injured. He's making more than $40 million this season. He's got nearly $95 million on his contract next season. And for all of his gifts as an offensive hub and as a rebounding machine, I think he's led the league in rebounding 3 years in a row now, 3 years running. I mean, he's not going to guard the rim for you, and he's not going to make long-range shots for you. So what kind of market is there really going to be for Sabonis? Zach LaVine has a player option in 26-27 that's worth almost $50 million. And kind of the rumble there is if he was willing to decline the option and take a longer-term extension at a lesser number, I think there would be some trade interest in Zach LaVine. Then DeMar DeRozan, because his contract next season, I think, is only guaranteed for about $10 million. Perhaps a trade market will emerge there. But yeah, I mean, the Kings were hoping to be a play-in team at the worst. And trade season really starts December 15th because that's when so many of the free agents from the summertime become trade eligible. So we're still a couple weeks away from this really ramping up. But in the search for sellers, teams are always on the look, trying to identify who are going to be the certain sellers before a particular trade deadline. And it's pretty unanimously discussed that Sacramento's in that category.
Sacramento not playing Keon Ellis or Devin Carter is so strange to me. One, in part because I think those guys are good and worth just giving a look at. When you're 5-13, I mean, what is the point of not playing them? But Keon Ellis in particular on the trade market, it just seems so bizarre to me. I mean, is it a true pivot away from him? Is it a pivot? Like, what does Sacramento want to get out of whatever trade they make?
Well, that's what I'm saying. To this point, I think it's more external interest from teams that see, wait a minute, this guy's minutes are down. Is he available? Can we get him? I don't know that the Kings have firmly decided yet if they are going to trade him. I think that's probably dependent on what kind of offers they get. But the interest is such that, can they get a first for Keon Ellis? And if they can, heading into a strong draft, do you make that move? But I think people who watch the Kings, I think Kings fans especially, who watch them a lot closer than you or me, are baffled by the decline in Keon Ellis's playing time. So I don't know that I have a great answer for you there.
Well, you mentioned that they are open for business, but there's a couple other teams that I'm going to ask you about that to me makes sense that they should be open for business. And I'm just curious if you're hearing even little rumblings about, nothing's really coming up yet, but other people expect it to be the case. The Brooklyn Nets, who have some players that are playing well that, they're on expirings or what have you. You have the New Orleans Pelicans, who look like they should be heading for some kind of rebuild and maybe want to recoup some draft capital. Obviously, there's Dallas. Utah maybe even has some players. Memphis has some players. So those teams that are at the bottom, Brooklyn, namely Brooklyn, New Orleans, is there any, do you hear any rumblings that, hey, they might enter the fray as well as guys that they have players that every contender would want to get their hands on, and they are in rebuild mode?
Well, New Orleans is one of those teams that the phone will ring whether they want to take the calls or not, because, as you say, Herb Jones has a lot of fans around the league. Trey Murphy has a lot of fans around the league. I think it is too soon to know how firmly the Pelicans' stance will be on rebuffing interest in those guys, because last season it was no different. and teams that called for those players were always told, no, 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 don't even bother. So again, it's probably too early to get that read, but I do think because the Pelicans are off to such a poor start that, yeah, they will inevitably, teams will be taking their temperature whether they want the calls or not. The Nets are always open for business. I think they seem to want more draft picks and draft picks and draft picks. And, will that continue to be their strategy after they just drafted 5 first round? They just made 5 first round selections, most of them in the bottom third of the first round. But, at some point, Joe Tsai, their owner, basically acknowledged before the season, he did a podcast interview and basically acknowledged that, hey, we're, he all but said this season is about, draft positioning, the polite way to say tanking. But it's at some point you have to start getting some stars in there,
Yeah.
And did anyone the Nets draft, has anyone the Nets drafted shown you star potential? Again, it's very early, but I think the answer is not in the affirmative.
Well, I love you're a man of polite language, Marc. I like it. Draft positioning, not tanking, load management. All these words to make it sound a little bit more palatable.
The draft positioning is more of a joke. Like, it's just funny how teams say that we are prioritizing draft positioning.
It's such a positive phrase. I'm going to start using it all the time. A lot of draft positioning going on in the league right now.
Yeah, a lot of draft
a sneaky amount. Maybe that'll come up here in our coming weeks as that becomes more of a story.
It's not going down. Not with this. not with the players at the top of this draft class.
And it makes sense this year more than any other year. Let's take our first break. But on the other side, we are going to come back and talk about Anthony Davis returning to Dallas. They're a team that right now is doing draft positioning on accident. But Anthony Davis returning could give them a shot in the arm. And I'm going to float my NBA Cup theory by Marc Stein, who is certain to agree with it. We'll do that on the other side.
We'll see.
Whether you're into basketball, football, hockey, or any sport in between, Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action all season long. And it's a really fun app because you can play Underdog very easily. All you do is just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, or more. It's that simple. You just pick a couple players each night to build a roster, and you say, okay, let's look at their stats. Do I think they're going to have more or less of that stat? And you put together, if you have 2 players, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, the more players you're making a prediction on, the more money you can win. You can win up to 5,000 times your cash. I've actually been doing really well on this using super producer James's predictions. He's really my advisor, my consigliere on these. And it's been really fun. It's been easy. If you know your team, you kind of have a sense of which matchups are going to go well or poorly. And it's a lot of fun to kind of look at the different lines every single game and make predictions. You can download the app and use promo code ALLNBA to score $100 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code ALLNBA, all one word, ALLNBA. Underdog, make picks, win money. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. You can see assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Also want to tell you guys about Shady Rays. You know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite pair of sunglasses at the beach or on the roof of your car or at a gas station 3 states away? Well, I've been there too, but luckily I've got Shady Rays, and they've changed the game. They've got sunglasses that are made for real life. They're seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. But the wild part is, if you lose or break them, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can wear your sunglasses without fear. Snowboarding, hikes, concerts, whatever it is you're doing this winter, Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. We've teamed up with Shade Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use our code AC35 for 35% off polarized sunglasses. It's the holiday season. You can find great gifts for a great price. Try for yourself the shades, rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show. We're with Marc Stein today, and we're talking about what everybody's talking about behind the scenes. And apparently everybody's talking about Anthony Davis. You're in Dallas, so you're close to this one. Anthony Davis, who could make his return to the Dallas Mavericks lineup on Friday. What's the latest there?
Anthony Davis went through a full practice Wednesday, and the Mavs have basically said he will play in a game this weekend. Friday at Lakers, Saturday at Clippers. Anthony Davis himself spoke to the media after practice Wednesday and was asked which game he would rather play. And his answer was, "Is that a real question?" Like, obviously, everyone knows he would love to play against the Lakers, which actually would be the second time that he goes head to head against Luka. They did square off when the teams met in Dallas here in April. That would obviously spice things up considerably for the late Friday game on Amazon if Anthony Davis has missed 14 straight games, and he's been eligible as a Maverick, he's been eligible for 52 regular season games. He's only been able to play 14 of them. So if he's able to come back for this one, obviously adds a significant level of spice. Now, I don't know that it's a great matchup idea for this to be the Anthony Davis comeback game, because they are going to put him in a lot of actions. Now, Anthony Davis at his peak is one of the best defenders this game has ever seen. And he does, at his peak, at his healthy peak, have the ability to move better than most big men we've ever seen. But coming off a 14-game absence, when his conditioning was less than pristine in the 5 games he did play at the start of the season, I don't know that I would want to have to deal with Doncic and Reeves and whatever is coming. But I don't think they're going to seek my opinion. I don't think they're going to be seeking my opinion.
Here's the thing, though, man. Dallas is in this weird spot where their season has just been a season from hell, 5-14. Obviously, they fired their GM. But of all the teams that I look down there, the Clippers obviously are going to try to salvage it. They have no reason not to. They have no pick. New Orleans is going to try to salvage it, but I don't know if they can. I just don't know if there's enough talent there. Dallas, a feel-good win feels like it could spark them a little bit. Now, it's getting dark early. Like we said last week, 5-14, there's not a lot of wiggle room. But part of me wonders, like, if you get a win, if he comes back and you get a win over the Lakers, who, by the way, are second in the Western Conference right now at 13-4, if you get a win, could it be the type of thing that turns your season around a little bit, gives you a little hope and a little inspiration?
I guess theoretically it could, but there's this crazy thing in basketball I've learned over my 3 decades, that guard play is kind of important. And if you don't have guard play, if you don't have on-ball creation, and in the modern NBA, if you don't have shooting, those things will all become problematic. And look, the Dallas Mavericks, as we're taping this, have the second-ranked defense in the NBA, even though Anthony Davis, their defensive anchor, has missed the last 14 games. And you know what? They have the number 30 offense, and they're the only team in the top 10 on defense with a losing record. This is the modern NBA. Defense is always important. You live in Denver. You've heard the speech more times than I could recite it. How are the Nuggets going to win it all without a top 10 defense? Okay, that's an accepted truism of modern basketball, but you also need a dynamic offense. And that's one of the many, many reasons why people in Dallas were heartbroken when this trade happened, because Luka Doncic is a one-man dynamic offense, much like that Jokic guy in the Rocky Mountains. These guys are a dynamic offense unto themselves. You cannot win it all in the NBA without great offense too. That is fact in the modern game. And so, look, Anthony Davis, he started the season with 4 20-10s. No Mavericks player has ever done that. In franchise history, we've never seen a big man go for 20-10 in 4 straight games to start the season. So obviously, if he's healthy and back, he raises their season significantly, but we still do not know when Kyrie Irving will be back. And when it comes to guard play, what did we see Monday night in Miami against the Heat, who we were just praising and praising at the start of this show? Jason Kidd so exasperated by his lack of playmaking options. His two-way, Ryan Nebhard, got more than 11 minutes in the fourth quarter of a clutch game. That's another thing. The Mavs have played 15 clutch games already. 15 out of their
That's
19
crazy.
games are clutch games, and they're 4-11. They don't execute. They don't have guard play. I mean, it's just so. Look, it's going to be an amazing scene if Anthony Davis makes his comeback in that game. He is, the one time he and Luka have squared off since the trade was here in Dallas. So Anthony Davis, obviously, he said it himself. Obviously, he would love to play that game in Los Angeles against the team that dispatched him to Dallas. It will be great Friday night theater. I can't wait. But I don't know how much one game is going to change the Mavs' trajectory at this point.
The funny thing about the defense wins championships trope is that it's true, but it's only the half truth, because most teams that are great are playing great offense, but not all of them are also playing great defense. And I think too many people think only defense wins championships. It's not true. Good offense, good defense wins championships.
You kind of have to be good at both. That's the advisable standard.
Yeah, but if you're good at defense and bad at offense, you're just a bad team. And so you're never even in those conversations. Where if you're a good offense and a bad defense, you can be a good team. And teams will say, yeah, but you're not going to win it until you add the defense. Let me throw out my take for you, because Friday's game, first of all, the Dallas Mavericks played Monday. They don't play again until Friday. So they will have a little bit of rest time leading into that back-to-back. But that game is a cup game. And the Lakers right now are undefeated in cup play. They could be moving on. This win is kind of big for them. It'd give them an inside track to move on to the elimination round. And I threw this take at Legler on Wednesday, and he politely disagreed. I expect you might politely disagree as well. But I think that the cup this year will be a watershed moment where it gains just a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of prestige in terms of your legacy or your resume, your player resume. And I don't think it is like, oh, you never won an NBA Cup. How could he be an all-time great? I don't think it's that. But I think there will be a concept of it means something, and it just is a little medal you pin on your chest, especially if you start to rack them up. And the reason I say that is right now, Detroit looks like they're headed for the elimination round. Well, they're number one in the East. That's a big deal. Oklahoma City, we all know they're the reigning champs, and they've been in the elimination round now multiple times. If they keep going back to it and get one, it becomes part of their legacy. LeBron has won one, and they are on track to be back in the elimination round. If LeBron wins 2 out of 3 NBA Cups, doesn't that automatically add a little prestige to it? The Bucks also right now undefeated. And I don't think it'll matter as in like, oh, they never won when they did this or that. But if Shea and the Thunder, this core group, they win 2 championships and win 68 plus games multiple times, and then, oh, by the way, they won the cup 3 times, I feel like that starts to become part of the ingredients that builds into a legacy. And just the way it's shaping up, it looks like it's going to be actually good teams that have been here before in the elimination round. So I think it's going to have it's going to start to have just a tiny bit of prestige that says, hey, they were always in the elimination round in the NBA Cup.
So Leg shot that down?
Leg says no, it still doesn't matter. And I agree. And here's what I'll say. The regular pool play games feel like nothing, but it's more about, hey, Shea and the Thunder were always in the elimination round. They always made the top 4, and they collected 3 or 4 of them. That's where it starts to feel. LeBron James won 2 NBA Cups. It starts to matter when important teams or players start to collect them. It starts to feel like, hey, maybe we should value that a little.
What I would say is when the league office watches this show, and they watch everything like hawks, you're going to get a very nice letter from Adam Silver thanking you for your impassioned support for the cup.
But could you see, here's what I'm thinking is like, they have the banner, which I think is kind of silly. I think every team should have a banner, and then you add like a little star or something to it. So every time you win it, it's not that you're hanging new banners every time you win the NBA Cup, but it's that, oh, you look up in an arena and you say, oh, look at that. The Thunder won 5 NBA Cups. they have 5 stars on their banner and they start to add up. And I could just see a world where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads this team to 3, 4 NBA titles and 5 NBA Cup titles, and that becomes how we talk about them. You talk about the dominance in the era, and they have all of it.
What I would say is, that I am a soccer addict, but I'm also a soccer snob. So when I've had some of these talks with the league office over the years, they know that like I've been going to cup matches in England, literally I've been following them since I was a little kid. I've literally been going to cup matches in England for 30 years. And so whenever I point out, but the NBA needs to do this and the NBA needs to do that, and this is what, like, their counter always is, give us a chance to build this thing up. We are starting, this is year 3, and you, Stein, are comparing us to something that's 100 years old. So if you take that approach, it is something that has to be built up. And again, because of my soccer background, I can't help but long for the day that other teams are in this competition, that it's not just the 30 NBA teams, that it's not just East and West separated exactly like they are in the playoffs. But again, it is only year 3. Let's see how this thing develops. Let's see if over time there are ways to work in Real Madrid and Barcelona to add them to the field. Or does NBA Europe finally happen, and teams based on how they fare in NBA Europe can be part of the NBA Cup? Like, let's see if it can last and continue to grow, so we can get to the point where like those things happen. That's really what I'm curious about. And again, I'm putting all my cards on the table, and I know not everybody shares my view of things. I can't help but compare it to soccer, because the soccer world is, one of my 3 or 4 favorite sports, and it's just what I love. So that's my perspective on it. But I'm glad you threw all that out there, because I really hadn't thought about it that way. And you're right. Look, if the Lakers won this thing again and LeBron has 2 of these, it's like it's 1,000 memes of, LeBron 2, Jordan 0, Jordan, you've never won an NBA Cup. And it's like, of course the league loves that, because anything that they're trying to give if we're talking about this tournament in December, that's what they were hoping for. That how can we create something in the NBA that people want to win, but that the outside world, that the fans, that the pods, that all of the basketball public is talking about. And you're right. If OKC can win one after winning a championship, or the Lakers win 2 out of 3, or the Bucks win 2 out of 3, or the Pistons win something. Yeah, that all helps the cause.
And Denver could be in the mix as well. It's just, there's good teams that are there. And I think when there's, the Raptors could also be there, the Magic, and these are good teams. I'm not trying to disparage them. But Nuggets, if the Raptors win, go ahead.
Nuggets win the NBA Cup. You do not want to see a banner hoisted alongside.
I never liked the banner idea. I thought it was silly, and the league, I know, forced it on the teams. But what I'm saying is, I don't want individual banners, up there every time you win a cup. I would not mind, though, if it's like the little gold patch that they put, which I think is really cool. You win a championship and your team gets a gold patch on the back that counts the number. I think there should be one banner in the arena that leaves room for you to add stars. And every time you get one, and maybe 30 years from now, you look up and you say, Oklahoma City has 12 NBA Cups. It's 12 stars on their banner. That would make it interesting. I don't want to see 12 banners hanging up for the NBA Cup. That's what I don't want to see. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, we will. Like, if the Nuggets win one, we'll see how you react in real time.
Hopefully we get a chance to see that. The last thing, Marc, I want to ask you about, I know you said people were talking about this, but injuries have been a storyline for several years because high-profile players are being injured. But I feel like this year the conversation is kind of moving a little bit more towards the why. And we talk a lot about, shorten the season, spread out the games, do all these things. And I think that's ultimately it. But I feel like when you watch the game this year, depth matters so much. Teams are building around depth and trying to get depth. Athleticism and speed, especially defensively, matters a lot. And I almost wonder if the league might be evolving along with injuries. Like, they assume injuries are going to happen. And now you have teams like the Toronto Raptors or Oklahoma City Thunder who build rosters that have 11 players that can play. And that in itself is kind of admitting the league is the game has evolved into a direction that guys are going to get hurt. So you almost have to plan for it. But if you're doing that, aren't we kind of admitting that there's something going on here that is physically almost impossible to get through a season now without some real injuries to key players?
Yeah, look, it's a source of great concern in every front office and the league office because I mean, it's devastating to see the amount of star players we've already seen this season who can't play for one reason or another. And Steve Kerr, spoke at length about this last week. And since then, a lot of other coaches have been asked about it. And look, everyone is searching for the answers. The medical people that I speak to, pace of play obviously is a factor, but it's not just that. It's the amount of court coverage that is required in the modern game. Modern defense just requires everyone on the floor, and especially big men, to get out on closeouts like they never had to in the past. The sprinting, the hard stopping, the decelerations, like all of these things are being examined and looked at and talked about more than ever. And again, I want to stress, I am not a medical expert. This is the feedback I get when I ask people who are much, much smarter in these areas than me, because as we all know, the league has been resistant forever to anyone suggesting that the schedule should be reduced. I mean, there have been calls to reduce the schedule for as long as I can remember. They've
Yeah.
never been heeded. I'm not saying it'll never happen, but that's clearly not the direction they want to go. They want to try to find solutions. But yeah, I mean, the Pacers got to the finals with a lot of depth. I mean, their depth has been absolutely destroyed by injuries this season, and that's why they're at the bottom of the East. But yeah, I think teams want to be as deep as possible to combat this stuff. But then, practice time is yet another thing. Like, teams don't practice at all during the season. Training camp
Yeah.
practices are curtailed. The exhibition season has been shortened. Star players frequently don't play in exhibition games. There's just so many factors, and it requires constant discussion and constant attention because, like, it's devastating to see. Like, I just go back to, it was not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and like in a Sunday, Monday span, and it's just like Anthony Davis, calf injury update, Drew Holiday, calf injury, John Morant, calf injury. Okay, now it's Monday. Victor Wembanyama, calf injury. The next day, Giannis, what they're now calling an adductor strain. Like, it just felt like it, you know, it's been a lot with the star players. It has, and what the league defines as star players, being an all-star or all NBA selection within the past 3 seasons. I mean, it's dispiriting, and it's important, and it's like, it's a significant issue that isn't talked about enough, honestly.
Well, the thing is if you can tell it's a real issue when I say the four best teams in the West so far appear to be the Thunder, Lakers, Nuggets, and Rockets. I think it's safe to say those four teams look great. What are the odds that all four of those teams are healthy by the time they match up? Assuming they match up in second round and the third round, the odds of all four of those teams making it there healthy just seems unrealistic. One of
And they're
those teams
already they're already not healthy. I mean, the
already
Rockets
not
lost
healthy.
the Rockets lost
Yeah.
Fred Van Vliet before training camp even started. The team
J
in your
Dub's been
neighborhood,
out.
the team in your neighborhood, no Christian Brown and no Aaron Gordon for an extended stretch. I mean, Jokic has
6
been
weeks at least.
legitimately out. It's the best Jokic we've ever seen, but now you have to ask, what kind of toll is this going to take on him with those guys
Scary.
out? And Jamal
Scary.
Murray has started the season in this is as good a start as he's had in ages. And yeah, and OKC hasn't even seen Jalen Williams yet, and the Lakers and LeBron didn't start a season for the
Right.
first time in forever. First time in 23 seasons that he wasn't able to play on opening night. So again, it's just like, it's everywhere. Every team, this is an issue. This is a pressing issue for every team. And to me, there is not enough that the league can throw at it in terms of research, resources, talk, panels, experts, studies, whatever it takes. Like, because why is there so much tanking in the NBA? Yes, I said it. Tanking. Why is there so much tanking in the
Wait.
NBA? Because one player in a 5-on-5 sport changes your fortunes more dramatically than in any other team sport. And the same thing applies to injuries. Losing one key player in a 5-on-5 sport, it devastates you in basketball, arguably more than any other team sport. So this is big and important.
Well, it's funny, man. I don't see any tanking. I do see some draft. What did you call it?
Yeah,
Draft positioning.
It's all draft positioning.
I do some draft positioning out there.
The all NBA show is prioritizing its draft positioning.
We are recording this on Wednesday. We're dropping it on Friday, and in between that is, of course, Thanksgiving. I want to get us out of here by just saying I'm truly thankful I get to do this show. I think Tim Legler is the single best analyst out there. And I had no idea he was as fun and as personable as he is. And doing the show, it's like, man, he's a fun guy in addition to being an expert analyst. Marc, you're as plugged in as anybody. You always know what people are thinking. You know what's going on in the league, and you're able to put it in context for all of us about, okay, here's what's really happening, and here's why it matters, and here are the big stories. And I'm so appreciative of that and getting to do the show with you. And the same thing goes for Jason Timpf, who I think me and Timpf might make the best. If there was a 2-on-2 tournament of podcasters, I think we would win the non-ex-player edition. I don't know if we're going to go up against Paul Pierce and KG and do too well, but I think we would get that. So I'm just so thankful for the show, Marc, and you're obviously a big part of it. And on Thanksgiving, I thought I'd give you all a little shout out.
Very, very kind. My 2-on-2 days are over, so it will not be. Although I don't know, maybe Chris Haynes. Chris Haynes would have to shoulder a significant load if I'm his teammate in that theoretical 2-on-2. But no, man, look, it has been so fun to be with you guys, and everything you said about Legs is true. I got to work with him at ESPN, and this show has reunited us, and I really hope everyone has a great holiday out there. I'm old enough to remember when the NBA played on Thanksgiving. Obviously, the NBA now takes Thanksgiving off. I think we can all stomach a one-day break. There are plenty of podcasts like this one to fill the void when you don't have games to watch. But we only want to take one day off. That's it.
True.
Friday, we want to get right back into it. And like I said, where I live in Dallas, like people are going to be talking about Mavs at Lakers now for the rest of the week. A lot of anticipation for that one.
It's the NBA Cup, baby. It's the NBA Cup. I hope everybody enjoys their Friday and enjoys their weekend. We are going to be back on Monday with Tim Legler. We'll be back Monday, Wednesday with him. We'll be Friday with Tim, and over the weekend with Marc. It's our rhythm. We hope you enjoy the show. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button on the way out.
All silly like the mayor.